Hi everybody, Mrs. Jenner here. I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope that you are getting very excited for Halloween, which is tomorrow. I know my kids are. They're super excited, but they're also little, so it's not quite the same when you're a teenager. But I wanted to share with you something a little different today. In addition to our book talks, which we're going to keep doing, I wanted to share with you something called First Chapter Fridays, in which I share the first chapter of an absolutely amazing book. And I know I say absolutely amazing books a lot in my book talks, but that's because I'll never share a book with you that I don't think you're going to enjoy. It's always going to be a good book, always something that once you start reading, you're going to want to keep reading. I'm not going to do these videos and just share an average, mediocre book that I don't think anybody's really going to enjoy. It's always going to be a great book, okay? So because Halloween is right around the corner, I wanted to share with you a rather horrific story. Now, before you keep going and listen to this first chapter, I want to warn you. This story is about a murder, and it's kind of detailed and graphic in places. So if that's not something you're comfortable reading or listening to, I suggest stopping right here and waiting until next week when we have a story that's not quite so horrific. But if you're okay with that and it's kind of your thing, I suggest hanging in there because it gets quite scary, okay? So without further ado, the book I'm going to be reading today is called Shallow Graves by Kali Wallace. Chapter 1. The first time I killed a man, it was an accident. He didn't have any identification on him. He was white, probably mid-50s, average build, average height, smoker, no tattoos or distinguishing scars. His fingerprints matched those found at a 30-year-old crime scene in North Dakota. A family murder, both parents, sons, and 2 daughters, all killed one night at the dinner table. Nobody was ever arrested. A real estate agent with the unfortunate name of Poppy Treasure found him 3 days after I killed him. She opened the back door of an empty house to air it out before her clients arrived, and there he was, face down on the lawn, dead. The police released a description and pleaded for information, but nobody came forward. Nobody admitted to seeing him. They didn't even know he had gotten to Evanston, much less how and why he ended up dead in the yard of a foreclosed house in the backlot. There wasn't a mark on him. The medical examiner blamed the death on a heart attack, but the unusual circumstances of where he had been found made them suspicious. They met my grave. There was a hole in the backyard of that empty house, about 5 feet long and 18 inches deep, and in that hole they found hair, blood, fibers. Everything I left behind was too degraded for identification purposes. That's what you become when you die, but don't manage to do it properly. Too degraded. This is how I killed him. I woke in the dark, choked on a mouthful of mud, and I panicked. I clawed my way through the soil and sod until I found air, and there was a pair of hands, his hands, scooping the dirt away from my face. He was murmuring as he dug, "Oh, you're perfect, you're beautiful, you're perfect." There was dirt in my ears, packed around my head, but I could hear him. His voice was breathless, excited but quiet. "Calm down, sweetheart, calm down." He cupped his hands around my head and tugged at my hair. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. I didn't want him touching me. I grabbed his wrist and I pulled. I didn't make a decision. My mind was blank with fear. Everything was wrong, twisted and nauseating. There was something foul in him I wanted to destroy. A dark quivering thread stretched taut between us, and I broke it. He died. He died, and 2 things happened. My heart, limp and lifeless, began to beat again. And all of the man's memories about the murders he had committed 30 years ago flooded into me. I remembered children slumped over their dinners of pork roast and potatoes. The littlest girl had fallen out of her chair. Blood soaked the tablecloth, the carpet, streaked the wallpaper in bright splashes. I felt the kick of a shotgun, and my bloody hands slicked on a knife. The winter wind was cold and howling through an open door. I smelled rosemary and beer and piss. The children had wet themselves. The woman took her last breath. It gurgled in her throat and she was gone. I remembered it all as though I had been there. I still remember. It's faded now, but the memories I steal never disappear entirely. That family, whoever they are, they died almost 15 years before I was born, in a state I had never visited. But I am the only person left in the world who knows what happened to them. Their killer was there when I woke up. He was dead before I saw his face. I know what he did, but I don't know his name. It was an accident, the first time I killed. It was an instinct I didn't know I had. I never made a choice. The second time was on purpose. Shallow Graves by Kali Wallace. Place your hold today and figure out what happens next.